Elizabeth. Faye, welcome to Confidence Conversations.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here and to connect with you even more.
Yes, I'm so excited. And I want to know everything from, your journey as a world-renowned hairstylist, the work you're doing as a coach, but I want to start where it all began because your life really took a huge turn at the age of 12 with a simple act of kindness. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah. Well, and fun fact, I actually just told this story on a TED stage, which is so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just a few weeks ago. So, basically my TED talk was about how hairstylists change the world. And the best way I could think to really demonstrate that was my story that I'm going to share with you is I was a really troubled teen. I grew up in Vegas and struggled with things from substance to physical, also sexual, all sorts of exploration, abuse, all different things happening. And I was trying to find a safe space, a space where I felt expressed and could be myself. And in my attempt, I ended up being sent to different schools or different families almost every year from 12 years old to 16. And one of the schools I was sent to, I hated so much. I just absolutely hated it. And I ended up cut and coloring my hair in a way that would get me expelled because back then, which is a whole other conversation for another day, hair had to be a certain way in order to be appropriate. And so I was like, all right, perfect. I will color it, make it, have stand up here, do this, do that. I was like a scene kid. And so I was like, I got you. And so I rolled up to school with that hair and I got expelled, which I knew I would. And my parents were very upset, obviously. But a woman on my way out of school that day gave me a business card for a hairdresser.
Mm.
She was like, you need to call him. So I ended up booking the hair appointment, and this salon was a really famous salon in Las Vegas, Nevada. And so we roll up to the Mandalay Bay. I get my hair fixed, mandatory color correction. And I was just enamored by hairstylists. I just thought they were cool. They looked all sort of ways, right? Shapes, sizes, colors, tattoos, outfits. Like I was just like, wow, these are like rock stars. And I just was like blown away by them. And I absolutely loved my appointment. My dad was completely pissed about the price and was like, you are never coming back. And I was like, I have to go back. And I had to go back because of the way I felt, not because of the bangs or the highlight or the haircut. It was the way I felt in a hairdresser's chair. So I, for 6 months, did a bunch of chores, saved up my money, and came back 6 months later, put the cash on the table. And the hairstylist was like, put your wad of cash away. And he ended up talking with my dad, and they made a deal. And they offered me a deal if I would come back to the salon with a report card with better grades on it, he would do my hair complimentary that day and moving forward.
Mm.
And that act of kindness completely changed my life, my career. It led to my career in the professional beauty industry. And for years, I would bring in a report card and I would get my hair done. I'd bring in a report card and I'd get my hair done. And, my TED, I talk about what was so impactful about that. And it was the way that I felt. It was that in the chair, I felt things I didn't feel at church, at home, at school. I felt heard, seen, and loved. I belonged there in the chair. I was held in the chair. I was witnessed in the chair. And I talk about the impact that we have in just making people feel heard, seen, and loved. That's what changes the world. And we hairdressers do it, one person at a time, but it ripples out. Like they impact then their children or their loved ones or their coworkers or their teams. And they're bringing that, with them throughout their day. And that, it ended up leading to my career. When I was 16, I didn't have a report card because I dropped out of high school. And so he offered me a job. And that is how I became a hairdresser.
That is incredible. I love your full circle story, but also just this idea of holding space, right? Because there are so many platforms and places and spaces that are supposed to be safe, right? Like school is supposed to be a safe space for children, but I, like you, went to a school where you had to look and dress a certain way. For guys, it was like they couldn't have beard. For us, our hair had to be a certain way. And even some ethnic hairstyles wouldn't have been appropriate.
Yeah, that's where I was like, that's a whole, like, Crown
Like,
Act is amazing. Then I'm like, that's a whole topic
yeah.
for that needs so much attention because it's, yeah.
But it's one of those things. But it's interesting how something that, you know, the world sees as probably small as like a guideline or a parameter can do to defeat someone's self-esteem or sense of belonging, because you're saying that this is what is acceptable. And if you don't fit this bill or look like this or do this or say this, you do not belong. And so there's so much power in safe spaces.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the cool thing is we all have the power to make whatever space we hold in the world safe. Make everyone belong in that space, to make people feel heard, seen, and loved in that space. And that to me is empowering. Is maybe I can't make other people do things, right? Like I don't have the power to force organizations or things or this or that, but I have the power to be in my business, it's safe. In my home, people are safe. In my chair, it's safe. On my Zoom rooms, it's safe. And that is changing the world. That is changing the world. And if 100 of us do it, 100,000 of us do it, like, wow, like we impact so many.
And we can do it one person at a time, like one like stylist, one client at a time. And like you said, it has that ripple effect. So I want to know about your transition from stylist now to coach, and where did that come from? Because there's always a great story in the making of a life coach.
Yeah. So the salon I started with was very education forward. So I was blessed to have a lot of mentors who were hair educators as well as stylists. So I saw the power of, you know, whether they were teaching at a beauty school or a hair show or on big stages or in corporate. So I was able to assist a lot of really incredible educators and saw how much education unlocks human potential. And I saw it within my own life and these other people being like, wow, this totally normal person or someone came from nothing is providing for their family, driving a nice car, taking their kids to Disneyland, has weekends, you know, to celebrate whatever, go to the park, and they're having a successful career. What are they doing? Like, what can I do that they're doing? And they had mentors and they were mentors. And so I noticed that and was like, you know what? I'm going to walk whatever they're walking because they have something that I didn't even think was possible for me. And so I followed in their footsteps. I followed in their leadership, and I continued to either get in spaces where I could be mentored, even if it was working for free. If I couldn't afford it, I was like, if I can be mentored, I'll do this, you know, later than paying for mentorship when I could have, you know, whatever cash I could, you know, pull up to go to a conference or show or whatever to get in the room. And I watched how it expanded my mind, and I watched how it expanded what I thought was possible for me. I even remember when I was in beauty school, I had on cassette tapes the book The Secret, and it was the first time I heard about what manifestation was. Like I'd never heard the word before. And I thought like I was like a witch. Like I was like, I know a secret to cast spells and no one else knows. Like I felt so like special. So I would try the like mirror work or affirmations or writing my desires down in journals and like just playing with positive thinking. And I kind of went on that career, and I was a beauty school teacher for years. So that's how I became a facilitator. Was I was trained, you know, to be a better speaker, educator, build curriculums when I was a beauty school teacher. And I did that for about 3 or 4 years, and also worked in a salon. That was my first teaching gig outside of training assistants in the salon, you know, so I'd mentor them behind me, how I was mentored, and then students. And then when I had my son, I had to go independent because I wasn't making enough money being a beauty school teacher and working at a commission salon. So I became an entrepreneur kind of by force. And I really, you know, had a fire under my ass to figure it out because I had to. I had a little one and I was the breadwinner. And so I started doing independent workshops, teaching without a company behind me and just renting a booth, doing hair. And I grew an education business, and I would just teach what I knew with business and with color extensions, whatever I was up to, you know, a little bit of like, I always say it was like basic bitch mindset, like a little bit of like the secret, but not anything too deep. And that's what I did for a really long time. And I grew a beautiful community. I became a single mom through the process. So I really attracted a lot of people kind of going through some things, and we just kind of like leaned in together and like figured it out. And I was teaching about twice a month. I would travel and do different small workshops, 10, 20, 30 people. And after years of doing it, I brought some of it digital, like had a digital program. So those who couldn't travel or wanted more, I did that. I had like fails, of course, along the way, but and then later I opened Hair Love, which is what I run now. I'm the CEO and founder of an education company called Hair Love University, and we're a global community for hairstylists, salon owners, and beauty educators. We've worked with, I mean, you could say almost any big corporate brand, we've probably worked with them. I spoke on their stages, so we serve a lot now. But this idea started as, so I wanted to have like Gossip Girl, XOXO Gossip Girl. I wanted to be like XOXO Hair Love. I thought that was so cute.
Yeah.
That's what my vision was, which is so silly. And so I was like, it's going to be the cutest branding. And we're going to do a retreat. And it's supposed to be one time. And my dad leads hikes and he's a yoga teacher. I grew up hiking and camping with him. And he is part of the Mormon church, but we lived in a really rough part of Vegas. So we were more just like an opportunity for people to feed their kids. And so there's a lot of people who are struggling with drugs or just needed food. So it wasn't like a Utah Mormon church where everyone's like white and has money and was like been doing this shit for generations. It was like in a hard part of town where people needed help. So he ended up doing a lot of like troubled youth stuff and helping a lot of troubled youth. He had a troubled youth, me. And so I grew up going to these like outdoor youth experiences where we were trying to get kids, they were getting kids out of their element, out of their home life into nature and to God and to some form of connection through hiking or prayer or something. So I thought, what if we took some of that outdoor magic that was a big part of my youth and mixed it with hair? And I live by Zion National Park. So I like wanted to mix a baby of like hair and business and hiking and yoga and create experience. And it would be called Hair Love. And we did this. I had a workshop and I said, who would come? And all these humans lifted their hand up and held their credit card in the air and said, I'm there. And I was like, all right, we're going to do it. And so we did it. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done because I'd never planned an event that big. It was 5 days out in the middle of nowhere. It's a big undertaking. Had a lot of miracles come through that people helped with, that it would have been a fire festival had they not. And like now looking back, I'm like, what a naive bitch. Like
Just out
so
in the,
much
in the wild.
no insurance, no waivers. Like I had no idea what I was doing other than like, let's change lives. Like so many things could have gone wrong, but it went really beautiful and it changed a lot of lives. And it began our company and our mission where, you know, we have a few statements. We say one is education unlocks human potential. And we have a concept in our education called Escape to Learn, where we take people out of their element, their day-to-day, and create a really safe adult learning environment for personal and business development. And we believe that hairstylists change the world. That's our mission, right? And if we can help a hairstylist change their own world, they're going to impact so many people.
Because people say, right, that your hairstylist is kind of like a therapist, especially if you don't have one. But I want to talk about, before we dive into how hairstylists change the world and the work that you're doing with your documentary, I want to talk about this idea of getting out of your element to really affect change in your life. Because I think sometimes it's so easy to get caught up in the mundane and the routine and what we do, and not even like what we like, it's just what we've become desensitized to. Right. And so tell me about the power of switching it up, putting yourself in a different environment in order to really see and then actualize your potential.
I love that. See and actualize. What a beautiful statement. Yeah. So I don't know if you're like me, but when I travel, I'm so inspired. Do you feel that way?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, when I meet new people, see new ways of life, see, even if it's like a way of life I don't want to live, it's like, it's still so inspiring or gives me
I
gratitude,
understand. Yeah.
perspective. Yeah. And I'm inspired. I get to see art and colors and new food and new flavor. Like it's just an experience. And so there is an element of, I shared this, I was doing a marketing class in my container the other day, and I said, do you want to make inspired content? You need to live an inspired life. Live a
Mhm.
life that inspires you. Like you are the one sharing your thoughts, your ideas, your art, your services. And if they want them to be inspirational and feel inspired, be inspired, be inspired by the hair you do, the services you offer, the people you serve, whatever it is you do, right?
Mhm.
And how can you get into spaces like that? And so I think there's that element. And the other one is, like you said, we have to like pull ourselves from the pattern that we're in. And we
Mhm.
can get so in these patterns of this is just what we do, and this is how we're being. And this is the same with the healing process, right? If we can break a pattern of a way we're believing in things or behaving or showing up for things, we're able to have that pause moment. It's like a pattern is like a snake that eats its own tail again and again and again and again, right? And if you can break the pattern, you have some space to like create a new way of being, a new neural pathway, a new, right, experience in your life. So these experiences are about breaking that pattern of the whatever you're in your life and coming into something that is maybe a little uncomfortable, maybe a
Yeah.
little stretchy, maybe even a little intimidating or nerve-wracking, but it's so safe. It's so safe. It's there to hold you, but it is getting you out of your comfort zone. And they're also long, like they're not typically a half day experience. They're typically days and days and days, because they want someone to be in that frequency. I want them to be in resonance with all of these humans and like integrate and embody different before they go home, because they're going to have to integrate it back into their lives. But it's like, you can hear a podcast and be so excited, but when you're like in that energy for a week, that's a lot more integrated, you're
Yeah.
like,
And you have to experience it sometimes. And that's a part of manifestation too. Is like you have to see it before you see it and feel it before you feel it. And so what better way to begin or jumpstart that healing process than to like block out that time and like do the work. And then it's like, then the real healing and the real work takes place when you go back into society and have to like integrate what you've learned in an environment where, one, not everyone is healed. Two, healing is an ongoing process. So like you can be healed in this area, and guess what? Some other is going to surface, which guilty, I'm going through that now. And then three, like you're also like navigating the terrain of, all right, so what does this mean for the rest of my life and for me right now? Like, what do I do with this new knowledge? What do I do with this new self? How do I want to be? Because when you break that pattern, you're confronted with the fact that the world is really just full of infinite possibilities, and you get to pave the way forward. So what the heck do I do?
yeah. Yeah, so relatable. Everything you said, like mic drop, so good. Yes. So that is where, that concept comes from. And that's also where I believe in long-term mentorship, where we have our coaching programs to really hold people through integrating it into your bank accounts, into your marriages, into your homes, into your health, into your businesses, into how you lead. Because it's a process that takes some time, but there can be so much quantum change that happens in an experience like that can be a pivotal, life-changing moment that
Mhm.
becomes an anchor point for really great change, right?
Yeah.
You're
So
able to
there's
jump
a
off
lot
that
of
edge.
there's so much happening there, right? Like you have this immersion in nature, you have all of your activities, you have your community, you have, the things that you're doing with actual hair and beauty and hair love. But the power of community too, I think, is something that's so powerful because you're humanizing the human experience in that way. So tell me about like the connections that you guys facilitate, and what is the power of connection and community in your opinion?
Yeah. I believe we're like pack animals. We're meant to run in tribe and community and pack. If we look back, like we came from villages, like literally, like we're used to being like mothers, we were like raising babies all together. And then we live in this modern world, right? Where we're like isolated in here and here and there. And it's like people look to these churches, to these communities, to these organizations, to these schools, to these, right, sports organizations. Like people are looking for these spaces. And I've been learning music, and there is the law of resonance. And so when there's resonance, it amplifies it. So when we're in a room of like-minded people, there's resonance between us, and it amplifies that frequency of love, of connection, of, oh my gosh, this is so possible, of all of these things. And so it's like when you can get in spaces that help amplify you, the things you want to have resonance with, connect you to, there's such an expansion that happens. There's so much joy. I was telling, so community is the heartbeat of everything we do. We have education and digital, physical, whatever, but everything is centered around a community and helping people be connected to self so they can be connected with others, because I believe we're all connected. And yeah.
So say we go to the retreat, we go into this completely immersive experience, and now we're back at home and we're doing the dance, right? What tips do you have to fully implement and integrate when we're back in the throes of the real world?
Yes. So this is where I always tell my girls, right? When you go to, or my humans, whatever you are, is you're given a toolbox of tools. So whether like you're working with a mentor and they give you business tools, or you're working with a spiritual guide, right, and they're giving you spiritual tools, or you're working with someone for personal development and you have nervous system regulation tools, right? These are your tools, but your tools are no fucking good unless you use them. So it's like, this is your opportunity to exercise and practice the knowledge so it can become embodiment. You know, okay, I should show up and move my body. I know I should look at my numbers. Are we utilizing the spreadsheet? Are we leaning into our mentor? Are we breathing, right? Are we using the tool to slow the pace of our breath so we can regulate our nervous system when we don't feel safe in a moment? And so it's utilizing your tools and building that relationship with them, not out of punishment, not out of obligation, but out of like they're nurturing for you, and you will serve from such a safer space, a more nourished space, a space of overflow if you're taking care of first. And so that's where I'm like, you get to go back into like real life now in a space that's not curated for growth, but it's the real playground, right? It's the real, like, think about the playground at recess. There'll be someone bullying you, someone pulling your hair, right? Someone's calling you a mean name, and someone wants to play with you, and someone's jealous, and someone thinks you're pretty, and someone follows you around. And it's like, that's fucking life. Like and this is where you utilize protection and tools and things for release and all of that. And so it's in the practicing using our tools.
I think that's so beautiful. And like realizing that we already have everything that we need. I think that's one of the most beautiful parts of that process and of doing an immersive experience, is that you come to find that, like, yes, while you may work with the healer, a coach, a mentor, a therapist, whatever, you are your own healer, and the tools that you need are within you. So if you're able to get grounded, take an assessment of the present moment and where you are, how you feel, and then say, okay, this is the tool that I need to bring me back to center. It's a really awesome experience. And I know that you do that with your clients. I know that you do that in your experiences, but you're also changing the world through your documentary, where you're showcasing how hairstylists all across the world do that. So tell me about Hairstylists Change the World.
Yes. So it's such a fun message. And I really see it in a few ways. Is I want to empower the actual industry that I serve, right? I want them to see like, hey, you make such an impact with people. It's such a sacred place. People trust you with like literally the biggest milestones in their life. Like many hairdressers I know are literally doing the hair of a client who passed, who died. They're there through quite literally like first person to know when someone's pregnant, heartbreak, divorces, all of it, new jobs, like all of it. We're like this really beautiful space. And I'm like, So I just want them to recognize the power in what they do and bring sacredness to the space they hold so they can see it for what it is. And that's, my goal is obviously that. But for the world is I want people to recognize the career path as something elevated and empowering and beautiful, and to elevate, the perception of being a hairdresser and elevate that career path. And then the global message is, we extract what is it that's so potent about what a hairdresser does, and that everybody can be that potent in their interactions and no matter what they do. So that's the global message. Maybe the punchline at the end is it says hairdressers change the world, and it crosses it out and says you change the world. You
Mhm.
change the world one person at a time by making others feel heard, seen, and loved. And I shared this in my TED. I said, so often we're like, but what can I do? I'm one person. How can I change the world? And it's, what if the better question is, how can I be someone who
Yeah.
changes the world? You can be someone who makes others feel heard, seen, and loved. That is the ripple effect. So that's the beautiful global message, is everyone has this beautiful personal power, is the space you hold is sacred and impacts others.
Yeah. And I want to point out here that it's every space that you hold. And
Yes.
it's all the time. Because I think that sometimes we think that, I can hold space, or I can provide a safe space, or be this whatever to someone else once I XYZ. But if we just show up as we are in this moment and just truly like balls to the wall, vulnerability, just like be, not only do we put ourselves in a position to get what we need, we can then give to others. It's again a part of that, like humanizing the human experience.
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah. And it's like in your messiness, in that vulnerability, you are giving people a gift. Like I was just interviewing some leaders on my podcast, and I was like, I want to go there because we're doing a disservice to people if we pretend as leaders it's all fucking perfect. And it's like, no, no, no. Leaders are using their tools. They're still
Right.
going, like the Buddha quote, pain is inevitable, but the struggle is optional. They have tools to make the struggle be not such a struggle bus, but they still have painful things that arise in their healing and their family and their health, with relationships and their business. Like things are going to happen. It's how you perceive them, handle them, and move through them that really is going to change the way you experience them. And to me, that's like living at a higher level, a higher way of being, a higher capacity of like using all of me and living as my highest self.
Yeah. And I think, the process is like sometimes easier because you do have these tools, but to point out, it's not always easy. And sometimes it still will look and feel messy. Like I was talking to someone earlier
Yeah.
today, I'm going through this like period of healing where I'm like, girl, didn't think I'd be going through this again. Like, what are these feelings? What are these emotions? Why am I reacting crazy like a lunatic to these things? And like having to do that deep work and like reset. And I think
Yeah.
allowing myself to see that and then communicate that, I think is so important, not just for me, but for everyone, because then we say, oh, like you're going through that. Me too. Let's talk about it. And
Yeah.
we create that community wherever we are. But I want to
Yeah.
switch gears a little bit and talk about some of the work that you do in beauty, because there's a large link, right? This is confidence conversations to how we present ourselves and our level of confidence or how we feel. So can you kind of give us your connection or your view of, put your best foot forward?
Yeah. Ask me that question again, just so I make sure I understand it.
What's your view or your take on putting your best foot forward? And is there a link between looking your best and feeling your best?
Oh yeah, I love that. Okay, putting your best foot forward. To me, that's like leading with the heart and the highest self. And so that's what that is to me. It's like my best foot forward. That like makes me cry. It's like to lead with love, and to always check in, like, what is the frequency behind my words? What is the intention at which I am moving, in this? And so that to me is putting my best foot forward and feeling good and looking good. I think this is our vessel. Like this is our sacred vessel. And my body is not who I am, but it is the vessel in which I'm experiencing my human experience, and caring for it is like the way I would care for my child or my home or tend my garden. And so it's like, the way I get my hair trimmed, or I do mask, or I was just telling you, I'm like, I'm doing a facial series, which is causing me to break out, but it's a way to care for my face that everyone sees. And I want to feel good in my own skin and my health, the way that my body looks and feels in. And I love like clothes. Like I have such a fun closet. Like that's such an expression of highest self to me. Is like, do I want to be like Emily in Paris vibes today? Do I want to be like goth vibes today? Do I want to be red carpet? Do I want to be like chill? Do I want to be like yoga vibes? Like I get to really just have fun and play. And so I'm in the beauty industry. And so I love being able to express myself through different things I wear, or, fashion's so fun for me.
I love that. And I love that sense of expression and the willingness that you have to do that authentically. And there's a huge link between self-expression and confidence. So I want to know, what does confidence mean to you?
Yeah. Confidence to me is like a groundedness in your sense of self. It's like feeling at home, you know what I mean, in your own body. And so, which is probably not the normal definition you get, but like, yeah, when I feel at home in me, sometimes that's loud and sometimes it's quiet. Like confidence can speak different languages, and it doesn't have to be either of them. It just like is what it wants to express,
It just is. I love that. Being
Yeah.
at your body. So you've given us so many gems today, but I want to leave off with giving you the opportunity to share any final words of wisdom that you have.
Yeah. I think to just trust yourself, to just trust
Yeah.
ourselves a little bit more in where we feel like, we want to go or how we want to be, and to just be light about it. It's so easy to make it hard. Is it just like can be such a pattern, and it's like even the healing, the growth, the development, like there can be some funness, there can be some lightness, there can be like we can laugh at ourselves. We don't have to take everything so fucking seriously all the time, And so I think that's my note to myself, my inner child, to you, to your, you know what I mean? And I have the documentary, watch it. It's on Amazon. It's beautiful. It's so beautiful. There's a meditation scene on there that's just like, but I have a fun song that we made called I Am Love Divine. It's on Spotify. And it's such like a fun, get in your body, like lighthearted, like it's like a good one to meditate to. It's totally free. And so it's just like, right, we can make our meditations fun. We can make our journaling processes fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it's time to have more fun in general. So with that, have a fun rest of your day. And thank you so much for joining me on Confidence Conversations.